I still remember that morning. The sunlight was warm, spilling through the window, and everything seemed peaceful. I was sitting at the table, sipping my coffee, and for a moment, life felt normal. But deep down, I could sense something was off. He was quiet, too quiet. He sat across from me, staring at his phone, but he wasn't really looking at it. I asked him if everything was okay. He nodded, but his eyes didn't meet mine. Then he spoke. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was calm, but I felt my heart sink. "What is it?" I asked, forcing a smile, hoping it wasn't what I feared. "I can't do this anymore," he said. At first, I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" I asked. My voice shook. "I think we need to break up," he replied, looking away. "I'm sorry." "Sorry." That's all he said. I felt like the floor beneath me had disappeared. My chest tightened, and tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Is this because of me?" I asked. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," he said. "It's not you. I need something else." I wanted to argue, to beg him to stay. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the finality in his voice, or the way he avoided my gaze. He left soon after, taking his bag and walking out the door. I stood there, frozen, staring at the door long after it closed. That night, I felt emptier than I ever had before. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Every part of me ached. The days that followed were a blur. Everything reminded me of him, the sound of a song we used to listen to, the scent of his cologne lingering on the couch, even the sight of his favorite mug in the kitchen. At first, I didn't know how to go on. I stopped eating. I avoided my friends because I didn't want to explain what had happened. I felt like a shell of myself. But slowly, things began to change. One morning, I picked up a notebook and started writing. I didn't know what I wanted to say, but the words poured out of me. I wrote about the pain, the confusion, the anger. And as I wrote, I felt a tiny bit lighter. I also forced myself to go outside. I walked around the park near my house, feeling the sun on my face and the breeze in my hair. At first, it felt strange to be out in the world, but eventually, it became a small comfort. I reached out to an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She listened as I poured out my heart, and her words were a balm to my wounds. "You'll get through this," she said. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will." Each day, I tried to do one thing that made me feel better. Some days, it was as simple as making myself a cup of tea. Other days, I treated myself to something small, like a new book or a warm bath. It wasn't easy. There were nights when the loneliness felt unbearable, and I would cry myself to sleep. But there were also moments of peace, quiet, fleeting moments that reminded me I could survive this. Over time, I started to reflect on the relationship. I realized I had lost parts of myself while trying to make him happy. I had ignored my own needs, my own dreams, because I was so focused on us. Losing him was painful, but it forced me to find myself again. I learned to enjoy my own company. I rediscovered old hobbies I had abandoned, like painting and reading. I found joy in little things, like watching the sunset or dancing around my living room to my favorite songs. And I learned something important. My worth wasn't tied to him or anyone else. I was enough, just as I was. Now, looking back, I can see that the day he left was the beginning of a new chapter. It wasn't easy, but it made me stronger. Heartbreak taught me how to heal. It taught me that pain doesn't last forever, and that we have the power to rebuild ourselves, piece by piece. To anyone who's listening to this, if you're going through heartbreak, know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel lost, to feel broken. But one day, you'll look back and see how far you've come. Healing takes time, but it's worth it. And remember, no matter how dark it feels now, the sun will shine again.